The following content has been generated with artificial intelligence under minimal human supervision. The data presented may contain errors or inaccuracies. The opinions expressed in this content do not necessarily reflect the vision, position, or values of G.L.M. We recommend verifying critical information with additional sources before making decisions based on this content.
Welcome to G.L.M Tech News. Today is Saturday, June 27th, 2026. I'm Kylie Brooks, and this is where technology becomes clear and engaging. The US government is letting Anthropic release Claude Mythos 5 to more than 100 trusted US organizations, reopening access after a national security suspension. OpenAI is delaying the public rollout of G.P.T, 5.6 Sol, Terra, and Luna, while vetted partners and US officials get an early look. Benchmarks show China's open-source G.L.M 5.2 model is closing in on top US frontier systems at roughly one-fifth the cost. Apple announced Thursday it is raising prices on several Macs and iPads, pointing to an AI-driven memory and storage chip squeeze. California Governor Gavin Newsom is calling for a federal billionaire minimum tax and a national AI public equity fund. Let's start with Anthropic, because this is a very real example of frontier AI becoming controlled infrastructure. On Friday, Anthropic said the US government had partially reversed a June 12th export control order and will allow Claude Mythos 5 to reach more than 100 trusted US organizations, including many Fortune 500 companies and participants in Project Glasswing. Anthropic had disabled its top Mythos 5 and Fable 5 models for all users after the original suspension, which centered on national security risks and potential misuse by adversaries such as China or Russia. Now, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says there has been significant progress in addressing the risks, and approved companies no longer need an export license for Mythos 5 access, even for non-US citizen employees. The trade-off is hard to miss. Operators defending critical infrastructure may regain a powerful tool, but the public still does not know the new safeguards or the full selection process. That matters because trusted access can be a safety valve, or it can become government-picked customer access for the most important technology of the moment. OpenAI is facing the same basic question from a different angle. Who gets frontier models first? The company said Friday that it will delay the full public release of G.P.T, 5.6 Sol, along with the mid-tier Terra model and the lower-cost Luna model, at the US government's request. Initial access will go to a small group of vetted partners whose details have been shared with authorities. The context is President Trump's executive order creating a voluntary 30-day pre-release access window for covered frontier models, so officials can look for national security threats such as cyber attacks or military misuse before broader deployment. Sam Altman said extensive safety testing is not a bad idea, but he also said he is uncomfortable with the government picking the customers. That is the line to watch. A temporary review process could make powerful systems safer before release. A normalized gatekeeping model could narrow access for developers, businesses, cybersecurity professionals, and international partners. Now this is where the market pressure gets interesting. Zhipu AI's open-source G.L.M 5.2 launched last week and is now within 1 percentage point of Anthropic's Opus 4.8 on a key agentic benchmark, while costing roughly one-fifth as much. Agentic here means the kinds of tasks companies actually want to automate: planning, coding, testing, and looping through work until the result improves. Open Router token traffic is reportedly climbing faster than it did after DeepSeek's V4 release, and Harvey co-founder Gabe Pereira says he has been surprised by how quickly open-source models have closed the gap. For enterprises watching token bills rise, a free-to-download fine-tunable model that can run on premises has a very practical appeal. It is cheaper, customizable, and not dependent on an outside provider leaving access open. The bigger question is whether benchmark closeness turns into reliable real-world deployment. But strategically, US access limits on Anthropic and OpenAI may be making open-source alternatives look less like experiments and more like insurance. Apple's price increases, announced on Thursday, make the AI boom feel a lot less abstract. The company is raising several Mac and iPad prices and directly blaming an unprecedented surge in memory and storage chip costs, driven by AI data center demand. The entry-level MacBook Neo moves from $599 to $699. The 512GB MacBook Air rises from $1,099 to $1,299. The 1TB MacBook Pro goes from $1,699 to $1,999. The 128GB iPad Air rises from $599 to $749, and the 256GB iPad Pro Wi-Fi goes from $999 to $1,199. Apple says it had been absorbing the component costs but could no longer do so. In practical terms, AI infrastructure demand is spilling into consumer electronics pricing, not just cloud budgets. IDC analyst Nabila Popal says the hikes were larger than expected and could point to bigger iPhone increases ahead, potentially as much as $200 on Pro and Pro Max models. Investors noticed the news on Thursday when Apple shares fell $13.29, or 4.5%, to $279.88. And finally, Gavin Newsom is trying to connect two anxieties that usually get debated separately: extreme wealth and AI disruption. In a Substack essay published Friday, the California governor called for a federal true minimum tax on billionaires, framed as a modern Buffett rule, so the wealthiest pay at least the same effective rate as their workers. He also proposed a national AI public equity fund that would give every American a direct stake in AI-generated wealth, with revenue aimed at worker transitions such as severance, portable benefits, enhanced unemployment insurance, universal childcare, tuition-free higher education, career training, and healthcare. Here's the political twist. Newsom says he will vote against a union-backed California billionaire wealth tax on the November ballot. His argument is that billionaires can relocate to avoid state taxes, and that the fight belongs at the federal level. The proposal also lands as Newsom is term-limited, leaving office in January 2027, and eyeing a possible 2028 presidential run. The idea responds to real unease. A YouGov and Economist poll found 71% of Americans believe AI is advancing too quickly. But the hard question is implementation. Turning AI wealth into broadly shared public equity is a powerful slogan. Making it federal law is the test. Today's throughline is access. Governments are deciding who can use the most powerful AI models. Open source competitors are gaining appeal when access feels uncertain. AI data center demand is showing up in Apple prices, and politicians are asking who should share in the wealth these systems create. The technology story is quickly becoming an ownership story. Thank you for staying informed with Digi All Tech News. We'll be back with more updates as they develop.